United Airlines updates policy that the staff will no longer take the seats of paid customers or boarded customers. So according to Jezebel, quote, the airline has come to the conclusion that it's not going to forcibly remove boarded customers from overbooked flights so that the staff can take their seats anymore. The new policy requires staff and crew members to check in an hour prior to departure. All right, so that's the update. And obviously United trying to do everything possible to make that. Did you guys even talk about the situation, you and Hasan? Okay, good. So we're gonna get our feedback because I haven't heard from what you have to say. Okay, so thoughts, 5 words or less, we'll discuss.
Baby, I've changed, trust me.
United, snakes on a plane.
This is just plain crazy.
Will this shit fly? We'll see what people think. I was trying to gauge the reaction and people are still, in fact, you sent in a story, maybe we'll get to it, you sent in a story about United, and people are just piling on their own stories.
It's
almost
a bad
taking
time.
advantage. They're almost taking advantage.
Absolutely taking advantage.
Yeah.
They're creating monsters.
They are.
Listen, this was the perfect storm, and it's like every movie is getting reboot with an all-female cast, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's definitely folks piling on to this idea that they think works.
It's a bad time to be on the PR team for United right now because you have this one story that was so obviously verifiable that got picked up really like by everyone everywhere, and United got panned, their stock fell, and now there are a lot of other stories coming out that are less easy to verify, but given that there was this one story, it adds a level of credibility that maybe United is evil, and that really sucks. And so now they have to do whatever they can. They're trying to overcompensate and put out all these statements, but we'll
Talk
have to see
about
if it's
overcompensating. Delta is saying we're gonna pay you $9,500. That's a mistake to say out loud.
Yeah, before Delta had some caps where the service agents could offer up to $800 in compensation, which is still awesome. But now the higher titles can offer up between $2,000 and $9,950. That's crazy.
It is crazy.
I would take that shit.
For sure.
But it's a bidding process. So they'll be like, who's gonna take $300, and then no one takes it.
Ooh, that's kind of fun. That makes your airline a little spicy before you take off. Like, no. Make some cash.
I hate bidding.
I've never been privy to that happening. So do they announce it to everybody at once, or do they go seat by seat?
They'll say, "Hi everyone, it's United. This we've overpromised," or they'll use a word that they've tested as the least offensive and say, "We're overbooked on this flight. We're looking for volunteers." Usually it starts with, "We might have a full flight. We're looking for people to volunteer to check their bags," and then they realize, "Oh my God, we have too many people." So it'll be like, "All right, we're offering $300 a travel voucher for you to stay behind."
And then they're like $300. $300 going once. All right, we got.
They'll do it like that. They'll do it and then they'll wait.
14A. 14A is going for $350. $350. Anybody else?
And United never offered any sort of compensation.
False.
To the doctor. I'm asking you. To the doctor.
They must. I mean, the protocol would be that they would offer folks to volunteer. Now, what it seemed like happened was the 4 crew people who were supposed to get on this flight were dispatched because they weren't gonna have enough crew to fly a fully booked flight out of Louisville. So they needed to get folks to Louisville. Now, it seems like that information came through late and they had already boarded the plane. So in that situation, they're like, maybe they did a quick round of volunteers, and once that wasn't met, given that they had a deadline to get out of there, and since it was last minute anyway, they're like, we only have a quick turnaround for once this lands for the flight attendants to jet through the airport. We'll delay the other flight to a maximum of however long it takes, but we're up against a deadline here, so we're looking for volunteers. It's $800, maybe they said, and get off the plane, but then no one took it. Then they started pulling people off.
That's insane to me, to forcibly, when you have your own schedule.
It happens all the time.
I know, but when I would understand it if it was, if you were on a waiting list, but if you already paid for your ticket, you already have a schedule, you're already set to go somewhere, then you're forcibly being removed.
Right, so in the mind
and then forcibly, in this case, we all know this man ended up with a concussion.
Yeah, but he's not suing United, it seems.
No, he's suing the Chicago because the police or whoever ended up removing him.
Because the crew had to call for backup. It
Yeah.
wasn't, I think that there's a little bit of a misconception where it was United staff members or like United security that were pulling him off the plane. And while it's still, United is definitely still in the wrong here, it was actually Chicago police that were called to the scene to pull the guy off the plane.
Have you heard the backstory of this guy?
Yeah, but no one knows that when you're taking, that's irrelevant.
That's the perfect storm argument. The perfect storm argument is A, there's a literal storm that has displaced hundreds of people, thousands of people throughout that weekend. I tried to fly that weekend on United from Chicago to Lexington, not Louisville, and all the flights were oversold by at least 4.
Whoa.
So that happened. They needed to accommodate guests. They had displaced crew, so they needed to fix it. Also, they then picked the wrong guy. They went through at random, and think about your authority if you're saying, all right, we're gonna pick people, we're gonna compensate them and get them off the flight and reaccommodate them later, but then you say, oh, but that guy really doesn't want to be the person we pick, we'll pick someone else. No, they have to like make a, I think the protocol should have been changed from the beginning, but once they're at that point, they're like, we picked this guy, we gotta get him out. And then they say, listen, we're not gonna pull them out because that's not protocol, we gotta get this airport security to do it. Add another perfect storm element where like whoever it was didn't look down to see, especially if you work in the airport, you can raise that armrest on most planes. It's a little latch that goes under there. Raise that armrest, then pull him out. Don't pull him out because he couldn't get out because he was trapped by the armrest.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing where that person, whoever was pulling him out, that's another perfect storm element where they just slammed him on his face.
I think David Dow, first of all, this boycott United bullshit, people stop trying to boycott stuff. That's like, it's so dumb now. David Dow for sure will have his day in court. I'm sure he'll be compensated. What happened to him absolutely was horrific, inhumane, should never happen to any human being, period. Right. What we need to realize here is that this is also a teaching moment and a learning moment for airlines, because more times than not, airlines think that they have this power. They dangle the carrot. You need to get somewhere. Especially if you're for a wedding, or as in David's case, he was a doctor. He had patients he had to see. So they act as if they are the messiah of your travel, which in some cases they are. So for this to happen is a wake-up call for airlines to be like, listen, we need to revisit our protocols and we need to go back and rewrite how we handle things, because we as travelers and as customers of these airlines, we're paying sometimes a premium to fly with them. So we're giving you the opportunity to serve us, but yet you're doing us a disservice by treating us like shit. Delta, you hear me? You're the worst at that. And I fly Delta all the time.
Although they're compensating quite a bit, Delta.
Well, of course they are.
Yeah, but
listen,
just piling on to United.
Right, and then people going on social media and saying, with the story that came out today about the couple that got married was going to Liberia. People always on social.
They were going to Liberia?
Yeah, Costa Rica. They
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Those are
they were assholes.
But
I agree with you. They tried to sneak into economy comfort, which is more expensive.
Because they said that the plane was not full. The plane was not full. So there's been times where I've flown from New York to LA on a red eye where there's no one on the plane. I could for sure go into economy comfort because no one's on the plane.
You still have to ask.
Right, exactly.
You can't do that. You cannot do that.
I've been upgraded quickly.
But that's the thing is you can get up to the in-flight team to whether they're going to accommodate you or not, and it is encouraged by the airline to use your best judgment, but we're selling those for more money.
Also, I think that people are attacking some United Airline employees online as well, saying how could you work for this company, blah, blah, blah. We have to also realize too, ladies and gentlemen, that there are good people who work for these airlines that want to do that adhere to a very strict code of conduct and do actually care about the customers and want to make sure you have a great experience. So yes, this could have happened on any airline. It could happen on Southwest, who lets you fly 2 bags for free. Boom, love you Southwest. And,
do you know why they're able to do that?
Because they're a bus in the sky.
No, because they shorted all they hedged their gas prices. So back when the gas prices were really, really high, they planned it out and they bought gas on a schedule through the future. So they were paying way less for gas than everybody else.
See Southwest, the bus in the sky, getting you there for cheap.
Yeah.
And an overall feeling of like, listen, it's a bus in the sky. We're gonna be kind of friendlier than everybody else, and just go and
there it is,
bags. We're not gonna
friendly.
Although I get anxiety when I'm like boarding group D, because then I feel like I'm not gonna get my bag up there. But just got to check in sooner, Sam.
be
That's
proactive.
all. Yeah. What were your thoughts when you first heard the story? Because you covered it right away. Was it the day of?
The day after, and I covered it with Hasan. Hasan was the one. He was doing a Facebook original on it, so he was like, he felt really strongly about it. And I don't know. It's like a hard video to watch. I guess, what are my thoughts on it? It's just upsetting, and I really agree with your breakdown, Brett, of it being a perfect storm of events. And the repercussions of which I think I'm going to be really interested to see how that rolls out, because we're seeing people that are sort of piling onto this, wanting to get their story out there, because there is a lot of skepticism in how United goes about their practices. So that adds a little bit of credibility to fraudulent claims. And then the other thing that I think is going to be interesting to see is how this will actually affect consumers' trust in airlines and flying, because
still gonna fly.
we've seen so many bad things that have happened on airlines before, and it really hasn't put a dent into the demand that we need.
At the end of the day, if you're looking at your tickets,
but this is a story that has the longevity. This United story has a longevity that I don't think we've seen in a lot of other airline stories. You know, we've talked about dress code things before, people like being asked
to leave
United.
That was also
flights
United.
Before because of how they're dressing or maybe things that they're saying.
But this is supposed to dress better. Like there's a rule. If you are not paying for your flight and you're using someone's benefits, you have to dress nicer.
Right.
It was, I don't know, there's a bunch of stories like that, but there's folks who didn't know that those were non-revers that are then making a story out of it, thinking they're just any passenger when they're not, and they're to be held to a higher standard because they represent the company.
But wouldn't you agree that this United story, because of the video and having it be so difficult to watch, has sort of a lifetime that I don't think we've really seen before?
And it's not
that's why I think the consequences of which are going to be long-standing. I think we're going to have to see a major reform by United.
I agree.
Because I think that the consumer trust has really gone down.
I agree with her in the sense that whether or not people stick to what they post.
Right.
I've seen, my point is that in support of yours is I see so many people saying that they no longer going to book through United, whether or not they're going to stick to that at the end of the day when they go on their computer and they see that the United flight may be cheaper than the American Airlines flight.
That's what's going to determine it.
Yeah, and that's what, are they going to follow through? I don't know.
Listen, everything is so automated, and they realize that when it comes to flying, two things affect it. One, if you're not a normal flyer, it's whatever the cheapest price is. And then they use like weird tricks like charging you for bag, charging you to have food, where a lot of times the cheapest flight you get on like Spirit, once you paid for your bags and everything, is more expensive than Southwest. That lets you fly for, get your bags for free. And the other thing is like whatever your company signs you up to fly with is what you're flying with. And you have the card for Americans, so you have so many points, and that loyalty program keeps you with it.
True.
But this whole thing, you can understand what United's doing in overbooking the flights because they want the highest profit. Also, you can understand that this guy didn't want to get kicked off the plane, and there's that perfect storm element that goes on. What this latches onto is that a lot of people who fly are more wealthy than other folks, so maybe their voice will get heard more than other people's voices will get heard. But then again, there's only 3 airlines really, plus like a bunch of fringe ones. So I know this is Republic Airlines, is the mini airline that got purchased and absorbed into United, but those airlines, in that there are 3, they have more power to do whatever they want and set the agenda for the rest of the airline industry. But at the end of the day, they just need to be better at managing these kinds of things. And I do think they need to do less overbooking, because what it does is create this terrifying thing. But it's all so automated that the reason that they're so eager to overbook is they know that 3 people miss the flight every time. Every time from Chicago to Louisville, 3 people miss it, or 4 people miss it, so we'll overbook by 4.
Right.
And then we make so much more money that way that we're willing to give up $800 a seat when we're off by 1.
Right. Well, let's
but they shouldn't do it.
See how it's hurt their numbers though now. That's the thing.
Yeah, I know a lot about this stuff.
I know.
I asked a bunch of people, like my friend who's a lawyer is like, if you want to build a case, you can't build a case based on everyone who's been overbooked and displaced, because if you took the money, that's over.
Right.
You have to be people like this guy who were forced off a plane. Yeah. And there's just way less of them, because people, when it gets to $800, are like, someone's going to be like, all right. Of course. And that's the reason that it's $800, because most of the time, for years and years, ever since they deregulated the airline industry, that's what's happened.
Right. Wow, interesting. Okay, so please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time.